So inflation is often called the silent thief of retirement savings. Well, I don't know. Maybe it's just nerds, financial nerds like me that might refer to it as a thief. But I think most of us, to be more accurate, probably most of the world views inflation differently. Most of us just kind of know inflation as the reason why we always kind of say to ourselves, man, I don't remember this item costing me as much as it did the last time I bought it. And so while it's important to be aware of inflation throughout your whole lifetime, it becomes really more crucial as you enter your retirement years. Inflation slowly chips away at the purchasing power of your savings, meaning the same amount of money will buy less in the future than it does today. For retirees on a fixed income, this can pose a significant challenge. So in this video, I'll help you put inflation into perspective, and I'll also dive into strategies that can help retirees, just like you, safeguard your purchasing power. In other words, I'll try to make it so you can still buy stuff and have fun in your retirement years. Before diving into the strategies, it's important to grasp the magnitude of inflation's impact. Let's say the annual inflation rate is 3%. That means in 24 years, the purchasing power of your money will be cut in half. Simply put, you buy a loaf of bread today for $2, let's say, you'd need $4 to buy that same loaf of bread in 24 years. Again, that's with 3% inflation. Let me show you a few charts that might help you frame this out even better. The first chart shows the last 12 months starting back in October of 2022. With just a one-year window to look at, you would almost feel better about inflation because it really spiked a year ago and has come down since. Now, I want you to really understand something about inflation when it gets reported in various headlines. It depends on the source of where your information is coming from. Some sources can paint a rosy picture and others a dark one, using the same data, but shortening or widening the time frame. If you look at this graph, then you would think that inflation has been going in a very good direction since it was basically cut in half from where it was about a year ago. However, if you pull back to a 10-year time frame, it may show you a bit of a different story. During the last 10 years, inflation had been hovering between 0 to 2% range, but you can see that massive spike as we headed into 2022, where inflation rose at a frightening pace in a very short period of time. Now we've come back down from that spike and are sitting at just at or below 4% right now. So how does that compare to an even wider time frame? 25 years is a long time. It's not forever, but depending on what age you retire and how the future works out for you, 25 years might be close to what you need to fund for a nice, healthy retirement. Well, you can clearly see the financial crisis volatility back in 08 and 09. You can also see the spike that we had just recently. But maybe equally important as it is to recognize the spikes is to recognize the long-term trend that you see on this graph and how it relates to your hopeful, long, happy retirement. You can see on this chart that inflation has hovered really between 2-3% during that time. So, you can make a case that due to the last 12 months, we might want to consider projecting inflation at a much higher rate than maybe 3% when we project out for the next 25 years. But I think we can also make a case going the other way. It's way too early to tell, but what's important for you is if you're in a retirement, if you're about to enter retirement or you're already in it, you got to plan accordingly. So talk with your advisor or do your own research, but use an inflation rate that you think is fair and representative of what the next 25 years will bring. My suggestion currently is to still use somewhere between 3.5% to 4%. So what does that really mean to you? Knowing about inflation and understanding how it can erode the value of your money over time is one thing. But what do you do to protect your wealth and to keep your buying power, right? That's important. So there are a number of things that you can do. And here's a list of just a few, and there are many more, but at least my goal today is to get you thinking and to get you proactive. Now, I still talk to people today. It's November 2023. CDs, even money markets are paying at or around 5%. Yet I still see a lot of people that knock on our door and tell us they're sitting on large amounts of money with 0% checking accounts or very low interest bearing savings accounts. This is not a time to be lazy with your cash. Putting it to work is not difficult to do. It just takes a little bit of research. You can do it yourself if you're a DIY kind of person, or you can always knock on our door. We're helping clients do this all the time. So here's some of the basics that you need to know. Diversify your investments. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. We've heard that before, right? Spread your investments across a mix of assets, and that includes stocks, including large, mid, small companies, some international stocks, and bonds, right? Don't forget bonds of all durations, including government, corporate bonds, just to name a few. FDIC guarantees are smart if and when you think you personally need them. Don't forget about CDs. They're paying pretty good interest right now. Another tip to consider are investments called TIPS. TIPS stands for Treasury Inflation Protected Securities. These are government-issued bonds whose principal rises or increases with inflation. The interest rate remains fixed, but because the principal goes up with inflation, so does the interest payout, which makes TIPS a pretty good hedge against inflation. While some of your assets might be more vulnerable to inflation, others can offer protection. Historically, though, keep in mind that equities or stocks tend to outpace inflation over the long run. Invest in real assets is the next one. Tangible assets like real estate, commodities. These can serve as a buffer against inflation. Historically, real estate values and rental incomes have risen alongside inflation, making them a pretty good potential hedge. But a word of caution to you. Real assets, I should say, have different characteristics than owning a stock or a bond in an account somewhere. Owning a rental property for its income is a whole set of responsibilities and risks as well as rewards. So proceed with caution, especially if you have no experience in owning anything like this. Please take it from somebody who does own a rental property. It's a whole different set of rules. So now there are some things in life that you can control and other things that you cannot. So despite the strong diversification I just talked about being a good way to manage that risk, let's talk about a few things you can control that could make a difference when it comes to fighting inflation. Revisit your withdrawal rate. I like this one a lot. Many retirees stick to the 4% rule, which is basically just suggests withdrawing 4% of your savings in the first year of retirement and adjusting the amount every year for inflation. For example, if you had $1 million, you might start by taking 4% or $40,000 a year from that account. Given today's longer life expectancies, though, and potential for higher inflation, it might be wise to start with a lower withdrawal rate or use dynamic strategies that adjust based on market performance and that inflation year in and year out. Stay flexible with your spending. It's a tough one for most people. While it's essential to enjoy your retirement, trust me, I get it, maintaining a flexible spending approach can help. This could mean cutting back slightly during your times of higher inflation or when the markets aren't performing that well, and allowing your spending to kind of be dynamic during that time. So cut back during the bad times or increase your spending during the good times. This one's really just about being smart with your money. So if you were taking two $10,000 vacations every year, then maybe when things got too pricey, you only take one $10,000 vacation, or maybe you take two $5,000 vacations. People are becoming more innovative and creative with how they plan those vacations and price them out these days. So they can kind of squeeze a lot of juice out of an affordable number when they do some planning and research ahead of time. So also consider part-time work or a side hustle, whatever you want to call it. A little extra income can go a really long way in offsetting the effects of inflation. Doesn't mean you should jump back into a full-time job or anything like that, but part-time work or consulting or turning a hobby into a business can provide both financial and non-financial benefits, which is a whole other podcast. So stay informed. My last one is to stay informed and adjust. Make it a habit to review your financial plan regularly. As inflation rates change and the economy and the landscape evolves, adjustments to your strategy might be necessary. So in conclusion, inflation is an inevitable part of the financial landscape, but with a proactive approach, its impact on your retirement can be manageable. By understanding its effects and employing strategies to hedge against it, retirees just like you can ensure your savings and preserve the quality of your retirement years. And remember, it's not just about how much you've saved, but it's also about how much you can buy with those savings in the future. Protecting your buying power in retirement is super important, and you should make it a priority. As I mentioned earlier, if you're a DIY kind of guy or girl, then keep crunching the numbers and doing your own research. If you have far more interest, like our clients do, in doing the fun things and the family things in your retirement, then hit the easy button. Reach out to us here at Stonehouse. As I said, we absolutely love talking about this stuff 24/7 with our clients. So contact one of our awesome advisors and they'll walk you through it.